We're going to compare 5 of the best upgrade flutes for under £3,000. Let's find out how they differ, and Tom Conroy is going to tell us which he thinks is best. Stay right there! We have got the magical Tom Conroy here, who is going to give each of these flutes the play of their life to offer his valuable opinions on how they feel to play. We're also going to hear from Abby, our head technician in the workshop, who's going to tell us all about what each flute comes with and talk a little bit more about the technical specification. We'll go through them in order, from lowest cost first. They range from about £2,500 to £3,000, which is $3,500 to $4,000 if you're over there. What flutes have we got, Tom?
We have an Altus, an Azumi, a Miyazawa, a Pearl, and a Haynes.
Okay, Tom, this is the Azumi AZ3 RBE C#. Take it away.
Beautiful, thank you, Tom. So, right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this Azumi with the longest model name in existence. This is the Azumi AZ3 RBEO C#, and I can tell you a little bit about what all of that means. So, R in this case stands for ring, which is ring keys, open hole. This is an open hole flute, which I'm sure Tom will talk about a little bit more, and those of you who are in a position to be upgrading will already know that this is something of a professional feature of a flute, which is quite necessary once you get above a certain point. The repertoire, the flexibility, you can just do so much more with an open hole flute. By the time you've accomplished kind of the higher level of grades, you refine your technique a little bit with these open holes, which is really nice. The E stands for split E. Now this is quite a common, normal, totally accepted thing now. It's very rare to get a flute without a split E, and it's essentially these two G keys in the middle are partitioned in half, and the E key closes one side of it. And that's a tuning correction for a high E. And like I say, this is really commonplace now. There are actually ways that you can convert a non-split E flute into an E split E feature if you wanted to, but it will be totally normal to see it on any upgrading flute. So they're just confirming to you that this has that very standard kind of modern tuning correction. The O is offset G. So this is not an inline flute, this is an offset flute. And I don't know if you can see just the way that my hand sits, my ring finger here is sitting on the G keys. They're pulled forward a little bit, which also means my hand can kind of spread more naturally in its kind of normal hand-shaped position. In an inline flute, all of the pads and all of the rods are completely, they're kind of lined up so that your hand is forced into this much more kind of, I don't know, unnatural position. It's more common in other parts of the world perhaps, but in the UK, offset G is totally normal. The thing that makes this flute, kind of sets it apart from some of the others we're talking about today, is that it has this additional C# trill, which sits here above this B flat trill. So this is really ergonomic because your finger will already be used to using this to trill. And actually now all you have to do is reach a little bit further and you get an entirely new note on the flute. The C# pad sits here in between some others, and it's a bit more unusual to see. It's really nice to have it on this level of instrument because it'll expand your repertoire a little bit, along with the B foot joint, which is what I didn't mention from the B in the model number, stands for B foot joint, which again, this model expands the notes that you have access to that way and that way. It's really interesting. It's quite nice to have those features on this model. So this flute has a solid silver head joint, body tube, foot joint tube. It has a solid silver lip riser and a lip plate. So the plate is the part that kind of sits externally, and the riser is the thing that holds those two pieces together. And what those materials are made of is going to offer you different response. But all of this is solid silver, apart from the keywork, which is plated nickel silver, which is a lot stronger. Speaking of stronger, French pointed keywork is something that all of these flutes are talking about. It's this little kind of, yeah, I mean, it's a point. It's a French point is what it's called. It comes down into the center of the key cup. And the best way to probably explain why that's unique is to show you a flute without it. So this is the Yamaha 211, really popular and reliable student model flute. But as you can see in the same keywork here, instead of there being a point that comes down into the middle of the cup, it's like a little kind of hand is like holding the cup like this. This is much stronger, much more stable. It's much more similar to like a clarinet key or something like that, where the arm of the cup is actually integral to the cup itself. It's much stronger. This, I guess, could be a little bit weaker. The 212 flute, which this has they've been replaced by, actually has French pointed keywork as well. So I think this is becoming quite widely accepted as a industry standard of what we want to achieve. The very final thing that I'm going to tell you about this flute is about the cut of the head joint. So this is a Z cut head joint. And it's an Altus head joint, which might confuse you a little bit because there's Azumi and there's Altus, and they are related. As Altus is the parent company, Azumi is the kind of intermediate level level of manufacture for the Altus brand. But what they do is they put an Altus head joint with all of their flutes. So this is like the pro level head joint you always get with an Azumi flute, which I think is so good. You can get a full Altus flute, which is like their high-end level of manufacture, but the fact that the Azumi comes with the Altus head joint just gives it such a boost. But for example, this Altus flute has a S-cut head joint, and the easiest way to explain the difference is probably just to show you, because it's quite subtle, but this is the Z, this is the S, and you're looking at the embouchure hole. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but on the Z, I don't know if you can see, it's much squarer. It's much more rectangle shaped, whereas this one is really rounded. That's the only really visible difference, but it's going to cause a massive difference in their response. The Z-cut head joint is meant to be really good for huge leaps, like big intervals in your playing. It's going to have really clean articulation and make it really free blowing, which is exactly what you want on kind of a entry-level pro, kind of high intermediate level flute where the repertoire gets really challenging. This is just going to really boost you and make life a lot easier for you. So this is a really interesting example. It's got some excellent technical features, some things that are really thrown at it to bring it up to the level that kind of exceeds its value in a way. And yeah, I'm interested to see Tom's thoughts about it as well. So one other quick thing before I let you go is I'm just going to talk to you about the outfit that comes with this Azumi. So this flute, obviously it comes in a hard case with a fabric outer. The hard case is really nice, really snug. It's got these nice strong latches. It's got this gorgeous kind of emerald green shiny lining in here, and everything lines up, and you've got this nice little flap to protect the top of the head joint from the G-sharp touch piece as it rests in there. This one actually also comes with open hole plugs. So I don't know, this is maybe something that you're aware of when you're upgrading from a standard flute to an open hole flute. It would be really horrible to try and just do it in one step. So what people tend to do is plug all of the holes. So you're essentially converting it back into a closed hole flute, which you may think defeats the point, but then what you would be doing is taking a single plug out kind of every couple of weeks or whatever. As you train it, you do have to retrain your muscle memory a little bit as you're transitioning to an open hole flute. And these are really neat, tidy, kind of discreet little kind of comfortable rubber plugs that are just placed in there, and you can pop them through when you don't want to use them anymore. But it comes with a tuning rod, cleaning rod, very nicely turned, made out of wood. You've got a gauze for swabbing through and a external polishing cloth, all in this fleece-lined outer carrying case. So yeah, it's a really lovely kit. You can sling this on your shoulder, and you've even got a little bit more storage in there for your extra bits and bobs. And that is it for the AZ3. Back to you guys in the studio.
So Tom, the Azumi AZ3 RBE C sharp.
Yes.
Yes, you pointed out it was a C sharp and not a hash.
Absolutely, yes.
And that is because it has got a reason. There's a reason for it,
Absolutely,
right?
yes. For the flute geeks at home and people that really don't know what it means. This has a C sharp key, which is actually a little bit uncommon among flutes because it's actually a professional flute component, really. It's an added key. Usually, if you're playing a bog standard flute, you'll trill between the notes B and C sharp by waggling your index finger and your thumb, which is obviously a lot of hard work for a flautist. 2 fingers at once, oh my goodness. So basically, they've added this little key, which means that you can hold the B down, and with the right hand,
Oh, wow.
yes,
Chill.
just cutting a little corner, which
That's
is great.
And this is the most affordable of all 5, and it's got all the extra bells and whistles.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. It's got the C sharp trill key and a B foot joint as well, which for a flute in this bracket is fantastic, and the Z cut head joint as well.
And what kind of a student or professional would be looking at a flute like this in this range?
That's a very good question. I mean, because flutes can range from a little bit of, even the cheap ones, you know, you have to invest a bit, to a lot of money. And actually, I would consider using a flute like this. I think this is fantastic. It's got keys that my professional flute does not have.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, if this were to make my life easier, absolutely. So, I mean, theatre players going between other instruments to flute, maybe a flute isn't your first and you don't really want to invest in that top bracket flute. Yeah. Or even if you don't play that much flute, but you just, you know, you want to have
something
one.
a bit, or if you've been playing for a few years and you just want the next
Oh, yes,
thing.
this would be a worthy upgrade.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, shall we move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
Miyazawa, the PB202 ROE.
The catchy name.
Catchy names, I know.
Let's give it a whirl.
So the name Miyazawa is kind of synonymous with like pro-level flutes, really. I know a lot of people kind of aspire one day to get their first Miyazawa. It's been the kind of archetypal professional level flute that people, crave and yearn towards when they're a learning flute player. And there's a good reason why. This is the 202 RE, so it's not the entry-level Miyazawa, it's the step up. And I think that what you get from that is the kind of purity of the silver materials that are used. So on this flute, the body tube and the foot joint tube are nickel silver, which is silver plated, same as the keywork. So it's a little bit more kind of hard as a material goes. Obviously solid silver is incredibly soft and that gives you certain tonal qualities, but the body and the keys on this are made of this kind of hard nickel silver material. But the head joint tube is made from sterling silver and the lip plate is made from sterling silver, but the lip riser, which is the kind of invisible bit that connects both of these parts, is made of a much higher purity silver. It's made of like a 999 or something. It's like a really high purity silver that goes on in there, which is just going to add a little bit of resonance in a really interesting place. Obviously this is where all of the action happens and it's really, really important on the flutes. So this one has like a slightly nicer kind of spec in terms of the precious materials that are used. Obviously it has REO in its name, which, as I've already mentioned with the Azumis, is R is ring, which is open hole, E split E, and O offset G. So these are all fairly kind of typical spec for a flute of this level, but they are just telling you that that's what it's got, which I think is really good. It's best not to assume, because things like inline, closed hole, these are all options you can get. It's just these are the kind of upgrade features of this specific model. So another thing that Miyazawa are really known for is their very famous Brugger system. So flutes have these long rods here, and there's kind of an internal rod that's like sleeved inside an external rod. And flutes usually have what's called a pinned mechanism, where the external parts that you can see have actually like a pin that skewers through the whole thing and binds them together, and that dictates which parts are pulling which other parts, basically. And the pinless system is just a different take on that. It's a slightly more complicated way of doing it, but there's reasons for doing it, and I think the best way for me to kind of explain what it is and what it's doing for you is to just take this apart and actually show you, compared to a pinned system, what it's got. So this isn't a full Brugger, this is a partial Brugger, so it's just the left hand section of keys, which you know, on the Miyazawa's website, they're kind of saying, you know, this is where the majority of kind of bending issues come in. This is really crucial, actually, the way that the left and the right hand interact. There's a direct connection between them. So it is really important. And yeah, I'm just going to take this apart and show you how. I'm going to use my magic repairer's touch. So here we go. Poof. Okay, there you go. So this is the left hand action of the Miyazawa 202 flute, which might not mean a lot to some people, but this is essentially the Brugger system, this part here. And I think the best way to compare it really is to show you the right or the left-hand action, sorry, of the Yamaha 211, which is going to be used as a comparison flute for a lot of things in this video actually, because it's really useful. So this is the left hand of a standard kind of student level flute, or a flute with a pinned system. Basically, a pinned system doesn't automatically mean student level, but in this case, the Brugger system is kind of, they're offering you a slightly different kind of professional feature of the flute. So I can talk to you about what this means. So this is the left hand of a pinned system. So it might not be that visible on the camera because they're tiny, but just here and just here, you've got these minute little skewers is the best way to put it. And they go through two kind of tubes. So there's an external tube and there's an internal rod. And this pin is holding them both together. It's pinning it like a club sandwich. And this allows this to move while the others stay still. You've got springs on the flute, these little needle wires, and they are kind of leveraging each individual component that's been segmented off. This is really clever. It's a really clever way of doing it. But the Brugger system is just a slightly different take. So instead of having pins that go all the way through, you've basically got this kind of much heavier weighted plate at the back. So on the back side of the key, it's just totally different. And you can see that they're shouting about their little Brugger system here, which is fair enough. It's very well thought out. So the rod that goes through a Brugger system, this is a good visualization of the fact that there is actually an internal rod moving inside. It's just completely free and you can release the whole thing. And the assembly comes together just through pure kind of friction. These pieces just kind of float without being pinned and without being connected to each other. That makes it much, much easier to maintain. It makes it really much easier to service. If you end up with bent keys on a pinned mechanism, you have to take those pins out, which is quite invasive. You've got to extract the internal rod, straighten both parts, pin them back together can be a real nightmare as well. There's obviously tools and techniques to make this as easy as possible, but the Brugger system, I think what they're offering is like slightly more longevity. On a pinned system, it's a bit more invasive to take it apart and clean, so that might mean that it happens less often. Whereas on a Brugger system flute, no matter what's happening, if you're like having a pad reseated or just having a bit of general maintenance, this is going to be cleaned because it all comes apart very naturally. Whereas this might not be cleaned every time the flute is kind of had a little bit of an adjustment. So that makes it more reliable perhaps going forward, something that a pro player might like, the kind of longevity of the adjustment that you get out of this. It's a bit easier to work on. It's a little bit more sensitive, but it just puts the leverages in different places, and the screws that are kind of balancing and dictating what closes what are on these really hefty, kind of healthy size screws, big plates, big points of contact. So it's ease, it's action, it's kind of repairability, reliability. It's a really good feature to have. And like I say, this one has a partial Brugger. There's like levels, like orders of magnitude more complexity you can get from Miyazawa flutes. The right hand can be totally pinless, and then also the thumb key can be totally kind of redesigned. Instead of having flat springs, it's got needle springs, and there's all kinds of reasons why that's meant to be kind of smoother, lighter, nicer. So one other thing before I go, I'm just going to show you the outfit that comes with this Miyazawa. And actually, I'm going to show you it right from the cardboard box, because honestly, they're one of my favorite unboxing experiences of all of the instruments that we sell, actually. I really like unboxing a Miyazawa. So this is why. So this is the box. You open it up and it's so neat, and everything's got its own little place in this kind of cardboard upper. So straight away you've got your little pack where you've got your kind of information about the flute, a little bit of information about maintenance and warranty. You have got a cleaning gauze in there, which is for the inside, and the external cleaning cloth, and then these are your plugs for your open holes. As previously mentioned, you should be able to kind of plug up all of these holes and then work towards having a fully open hole kind of technique. And it's, again, super neat, discreet little transparent plugs here, which are really easy to install. But yes, it even comes on this lovely little kind of cardboard plate where you've very neatly got your Miyazawa cleaning rod. This is for kind of checking the head cork position and putting your gauze through here to swab it. And then like the shoulder strap for the case. And the case is then very neatly inside here. And again, you've got the outer soft case is often kind of fleecy, fluffy lined. This is really fleecy, fluffy. And that's going to kind of protect your hard case, which again is just kind of this velvety soft lining with this little flap here. This flap, as I mentioned before, a lot of people don't know it's there or don't know why it's there, but it's essentially you put it over the head of your flute here to stop the G sharp from scratching it in the case. So yeah, that is the Miyazawa 202 RE, and that's enough from me, so it's back to you guys in the studio.
So Tom, how did you find the Miyazawa PB202 ROE to play?
What a name again. Very interesting, very different to the Azumi. It's got a Britannia silver head joint, which is different to most, you know, sterling silver, silver plated nickel. We've covered it as well in the Altus video that we did of all the different models. There was that one with the Britannia silver head joint. And I feel, as again, people might disagree, you can just give it a bit more oomph. You get a bit more bang for your buck.
I do trust your opinion though, because you're very good.
Oh, well, thank you very much. But it's interesting. I feel like...
is it a different sound, or is it just a bit more kind of power somehow?
It's more to do with the feel, really.
Yeah.
I think I can get a big sound out of sterling silver, but I think this one, it just kind of supports it a bit more.
So you can put a big bit of puff in there.
I'm so easily creating that louder sound, and I don't feel like it's going to split into one of the upper notes. Whereas sometimes you know your limits on other flutes, and it's like, okay, well, whereas this one is like, no, give more. So I like that. Obviously, a little bit of a step back without the C sharp trill and the B foot. So I'm still thinking about the Azumi, but yes. A lovely flute, and the handling is lovely with all that, you know, the new patented keywork and everything.
Yeah, it's got a Johann Brugger trademarked pinless mechanism, right? In the
thumb here, yeah. And the action across the keys, I've got to say, it's very light. If you're someone that kind of enjoys the kind of softer feel underneath the fingers, it's kind of allowing me to fly around a little bit easier.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's go on to the next one. Should we do a little switcheroo? We've got the Pearl EP925 RE Elegante Primo. The names get longer. Take it away, Tom.
Right, fantastic. So this is the Pearl 925 Elegante Primo REO flute. So we've got open hole, offset G, and split E. As we're well aware at this point, these are the nice features that flutes of this level should have, arguably, and this one indeed has them all. One of the nice things about this flute is the use of solid silver, or like 925 sterling silver is used for all of the base tubing. So the foot joint, the main body tube, and the head joint are all 925 sterling. The lip riser connecting the tube to the plate and the plate itself are all 925 silver. So you've got lashings of precious metals on this flute, which are going to add kind of weight and resonance. One of the interesting things I found out when researching this model as well is that just the barrel part, so just this part here, sometimes you call it the barrel, you would call it the head joint socket. This is a slightly less kind of pure silver alloy. It's like 500 rather than 925 purity, which yeah, it just means that I thought it was an interesting choice. It's going to be harder, it's not going to be as soft, and I think that's been done because of this kind of very kind of physical connection between the head and the body. You've got this point of contact, and by making that a kind of harder material, it's going to kind of boost the resonance between them. I know you can get these things called like tone boosters, or these little effect plates that are meant to be doing this kind of same thing, is you're bridging two separate parts with something really firm, and that's meant to kind of transfer the vibration from one part to another really well. So that's why I think they've done this. But again, it's totally invisible, like you can't see that that's a thing, and you might not even detect it given that there's so much other kind of solid silver going on this model. So this model also has a pinless mechanism. It's not the trademarked Brugger system that belongs to Miyazawa. It's the Pearl's core bar system. So it's their kind of version of it. And there is something quite visible externally that tells you there's something different going on with this flute. Again, the best way to show you that is to compare it to the 212, or the 211, sorry. This has the pinned system in the left hand. So if I try and line them up. So in the left hand, these two keys here, these two keys here. On this one, the pins are protruding up and out, which is another reason not to have them, I suppose. They can actually like be quite sharp, especially if they've been taken in and out a few times. They could have burrs on them and they could cut your clothing. I have had customers before who were kind of getting sliced by their pins. So that's something to be aware of. But this part here that bridges between the kind of the segmented parts of the left-hand action. That's the only bit externally that you can really see. You can see it move with the left hand. This one doesn't have that because it doesn't need it. This is to really strengthen this system. So the pins are really strong. The pins hold things really stably. And this is to try and counteract any kind of like flexibility or delicate nature of the pinless system. So again, it's really well thought out by Pearl. And I'm just gonna show you by taking it apart what those sections come apart and looking like. So again, let me get my magic repairer's touch ready. Here we go. There it is. Okay, so this pinless system looks very much like the Brugger system in the way that it's partitioned, but you don't have that big strengthening bar that had the word Brugger on it. And I think that's where this comes into its own, because it does warrant a little bit more strength. I think it's perhaps a little bit more vulnerable because this is a very awkward part. Any repairers will know where you've got like a floating segment. Alignment is absolutely crucial. So it's perhaps a little less forgiving to have this kind of system, but that's where the kind of sophistication comes in. That's where like a higher level of kind of technical attention could be required when working on a flute of this level. But this is kind of unpinned, freely floating on here, along with this part here. One thing that Pearl do quite nicely is that the end section of this part here actually holds the right hand in as well. So you can probably see that this key is already kind of floating. It's like wanting to fly off. So I suppose one downside perhaps of this system is that if this long rod decides to try and work itself free, which can happen with flutes, they're all completely made of metal, and the whole point is that they're meant to be really vibratey. So sometimes screws can start to slowly work themselves out. And if this was to work itself out just to a point where that little nubbin disconnects, then your whole right hand will fly off, and then, you know, there's some things to be aware of. That's a problem that can happen with normal flutes anyway. On a standard non-pinless, or like on a pinned flute, this little part here is doing that. So you'd have a little kind of notch that's holding in the entire left hand. So it's a thing with flutes, unfortunately. They're sensitive little vibrating little things. But anyway, this is one of the nice features of this flute is it has a pinless mechanism. And it's not dissimilar to the Brugger, but it's Pearl's own kind of take on it. And I think that it's really, really clever. There's some really clever design gone into doing this. So before we move on from this, we're just going to have a quick look at the outfit again, and the case and all of the accessories that come with it. So, as with all of these flutes, you've got this nice kind of outer bag, carry handle, as well as the shoulder strap. And I would bet good money it's going to be nice and fleecy on the inside. It's very fleecy on the inside. So this is more like a shearling. It's like less kind of plush. It's very warm, very nice, very insulating. Inside the case, again, we've got these little open hole plugs. So again, this is really standard. There's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of by buying an open hole flute and then immediately plugging all of the holes so that you can build yourself up to it. I would be very surprised if someone was able to just transition straight from a close to an open hole. I mean, not saying it can't be done, it's just, it's not going to be very fun. It's not going to be very enjoyable. The transition should be done kindly to yourself, I think. This flute has the cleaning rod in here in its own little packaging, which is quite nice. Again, that's just a very nicely turned wooden rod. And as with the other flutes, you've got the cleaning gauze, you've got like an external polishing cloth, and you've got your little kind of maintenance card with a bit of advice on it. So again, fully kitted out to get playing. And I suppose one of the things I should really mention is that Pearls are super well known for their head joints. It's got like a handmade head joint with loads of power in it. I've got a very good repairer friend who's very fond of the pearl flute head joints in particular and their response and resonance. So the head joint, I think, is going to be quite a standout feature of this model in particular, as well as all of the other nice things that it's got, all of the precious metals and things. Tonally, this will be a really interesting one to compare to the others because of those features. So let's see what Tom thinks back in the studio.
Right, Tom, so how did this flute play to you? We're going to call it the Dolly from now on in because it's the Pearl EP925. Just a little joke for our country friends out there.
I love that, that was brilliant. Yeah, it's definitely got a different character from the other ones. I love that every different flute is bringing something different to the table.
Yeah, it does seem like it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'm really loving about this model is the Forte head joint, which is one of Pearl's flagship features on the flute.
And we're back on the sterling silver now, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. And it basically, the way that this head joint and the lip cut is, the embouchure hole is shaped, it just gives that much darker quality, especially down the bottom, which I'm always looking for to kind of just change up my sound a little bit. Flautists, you know, we struggle a lot getting that nice rounded beefy sound towards the bottom, whereas this kind of just seems to really help you along that road.
That's great. Well, it's amazing how they're all bringing something different already. Should we move on to the next one, which is the Haynes Q1?
Awesome.
Would you like to give that one a go?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is the Haynes Q1. So some people may be aware of Haynes. They're one of these names in the really high-end flute world. This is their kind of version of like a slightly more accessible flute price-wise. So this is coming out of like the Haynes kind of Beijing factory. So what they've tried to do is take all of their blueprints and the geometry and geography of the high-end flutes and have it just made at a more affordable level of manufacture to try and give people access to the Haynes world, which I think is quite a nice idea actually. And this in particular has some nice features that Haynes have brought over from their kind of pro-level flutes. This flute has a nickel silver body tube and foot joint tube and nickel silver keywork, so that's all very strong, and those things do help to bring the price down a little bit because they're focusing on the fact that they're putting the solid silver just into the head joint tube, which, to be fair, that's going to make the biggest difference. That's the kind of upgrade that you might kind of be looking for if you're looking to move from like a student flute. You're basically looking for a solid silver head joint, but this one has some other nice pro features that they've kind of thrown at it as well. This flute you can kind of quite customize actually. They've made it so that from Haynes themselves you can order it with a few different types of features. The splitty and the offset G are like standard in the UK, so that's what we've got in front of us here, and also the open hull, which is what kind of elevates this to a higher level intermediate flute. You can get this flute with the C-sharp trill that sits here, and the pad sits down here. That's quite a nice option. You can get this flute with the low B foot as well. This one obviously only has a C. The low B foot can kind of expand your repertoire, and I think there are places where that's actually necessary. So again, it's good to know that that's available. This flute also has its own version of a pinless left hand. So you could say that this is a partially pinless system, because the right hand does in fact have pins, but the left hand does not. In fact, let me just make sure I'm right about saying that the right hand does not have pins, because looking at it, that looks fully pinless to me, which is interesting. I wasn't going to take this apart and show you, but actually I think I will now, because this is a fully pinless system, which is the only flute that we've looked at today that has a fully pinless in the right and left hand. It has large plates, not dissimilar to the Miyazawa system, the Brugger system. These things are adding a lot of weight and strength in place of those pins that give the instrument its rigidity. So down here, these little things moving here, this is very reminiscent of the Brugger system. I mean, that is a tried and tested pinless system. So you can see kind of nods to that here, or certainly some inspiration drawn from it, let's say. But yeah, I'm going to get this into bits and just show you, because that's actually quite interesting now. Let me get my magic repairer's touch ready. Here we go. Bloody bassoons. That's better. Okay, so left and right hand pinless. I actually didn't know this about this model, so I'm actually have discovered something during the course of this video as well. So just to make it more worthwhile to show you the fact that it is left and right hand pinless, I thought it'd be really interesting to just show you the internal rod. So on this flute, instead of having the rod that holds the top C in be the rod that holds the entire left and right hand in, they actually have an individual kind of floating rod that sits inside the rest of the mechanism. If I can just extract that a little bit. So you've got rod, key, key, and then similarly down here in the right hand, this is just a slightly more unusual way of doing the pinless system, but you should be able to see there is a floating rod with absolutely nothing mechanically connecting all of these pieces other than incredibly clever engineering and design. How nice is that? The fact that it all comes apart, this is going to be really easy to service, and it's going to give you just a really nicely weighted action. You can kind of balance the springs a bit better, and like I say, it's better kind of longevity in the maintenance. And again, they've all got these kind of strengthening bars at the back. So it's another take on the pinless system. I believe the pinless system will be kind of adopted as like the standard professional flute system in due course, because everyone seems to be coming up with their own version of it and generally agreeing that it works well. So just quickly about this one, I'm just going to talk to you about the outfit and what you get with this lovely Haynes Q1. So this is the box. Welcome to the Haynes family. I always think that's quite nice. They know their reputation. They know that you're excited about getting a Haynes flute. This case feels like real leather. I don't know if it's real, but it feels lovely and soft. And the inside lining, again, fluff. I'm betting fluff. It's black fluff. So that makes it a little bit different. It's kind of a dark look. It's very plush. And then inside the case, you've got like a anti-tarnish strip, which is a nice touch on an instrument that's all silver. And again, you've got your open hole plugs, no shame, no judge, and a nice little kind of metal name label of theirs, which I just think is nice. It's nice quality. And then you get the shoulder strap, again, leather, padded, nice touch. You get the nicely turned kind of wooden cleaning rod, and you should have the usual kind of silky gauze and the external silver polishing cloth. And you get like a little welcome to the Haynes family kind of warranty card, register your flute, that kind of thing. So yeah, this is another great option, and I've learned some things today and I'm quite impressed with it. So let's see what Tom thinks in the studio.
Right now, Tom, this is my favourite because it's got a really easy name, the Haynes Q1.
Can't go wrong, can you?
Yeah, you can't. How did it feel to play?
Yeah, it felt great. It's got that nice creamy quality to the sound, I think. And yeah, it's luscious without trying. This the flute is finished over in the US after being built in the factories in Beijing. And it's great quality. It feels great under the
fingers. The higher priced Haynes ones in the US are like very expensive, aren't they?
Yes.
So it's kind of like taken some of that.
Oh yeah, they're taking inspiration
vibe
from those.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, feels like a pro flute, but for the less price, which is great.
And it's the Pisoni pads, which you love.
Yes.
Yes.
Lovely Pisoni pads.
Those are good.
Again, for the nerds back home, it's
We're all nerds here, Tom.
Absolutely. That's why we're here. It's better quality leather. It's going to last longer. It seals a little bit better. You'll probably spend less time going to and from the repairer.
Okay, this one is on at 2,995 right now, 2025 May. What have we got now? That's the Altus A9 REO.
Brilliant.
Let's have a little.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Beautiful playing, Tom. Thank you for that. This is the Altus A9 REO. So again, REO, open hole, splitty, offset G. Totally normal stuff to expect on a flute of this caliber. But this is the most expensive flute that we're looking at today. And hopefully I can dig into some detail about why that is, because at first sight, it just looks like an open hole flute. Why is it different? So on this flute, the head joint, the base metal of the head joint is made of something called Britannia silver. So most of the time when we're talking about silver and solid silver being used for flutes, we're talking about sterling silver, which is 925. That's the purity of sterling silver. Britannia silver is 958 purity, so it's a bit more silver in it. And what that does is it allows the head joint to kind of have a bit more like tonal quality of the silver without having to do that by increasing the thickness of the wall. So you get some flutes that are like heavy walled and some that are like thin walled, and the heavy wall adds more weight and resonance of the pure silver, so you're going to get more from it. By using the higher kind of purity of silver in Britannia silver, you're able to get that purpose without adding the weight. So that's a really nice thing that they've done here. The lip plate and riser are both made of sterling silver, so you're not kind of, they've been very careful about where they're going to add weight. And then the body tube, the foot joint tube, and all of the keywork is plated nickel silver. So again, you've got quite a hard, zingy material up here to contradict the kind of the heavier, weighted, softer, pure silver up there. So one of the other things that makes this flute more expensive is what the processes have been chosen in the manufacture. So all of the other flutes we've looked at today have been a drawn tube. Now that doesn't really explain what it is, but in order to actually make the tube itself from scratch, the actual body tube, a drawn tube will basically be kind of a sheet or a disc of the base metal that's fully stretched under like insane amounts of pressure, stretched into a tube. So it's a single piece. That's quite quick and it's quite cheap. And it's really strong because, you know, it's a single set piece of material. This flute is seamed. It's a seamed body tube, which is, it's basically kind of calling back to like what old flute makers used to do. There's like this huge kind of reputation of these vintage flute makers who did everything really painfully by hand. And seaming the body tube is a way of doing that. So a seamed body tube will be that the tube was originally kind of a sheet of metal that's actually been folded or curved round a mandrel into a tube. And then where those two parts meet, it's been soldered under high heat into that. So it's still a single piece, but instead of being a single stretched piece of metal, it's a single piece that's actually been connected with solder. The process of soldering applies a lot of heat to that base metal, which can harden it a bit. So the fact that this is a nickel silver body tube that's been seamed and soldered under high heat means that this is going to be a really hard body, really vibrant and zingy in that case. The harder the material, you can imagine it vibrates differently to something that's really soft. So again, you've got this kind of ultra soft head, ultra hard body. It's kind of interesting to see how those play against each other. All Altus flutes, including the Azumi we looked at before, as I said, Azumi and Altus are actually related. The mapping of their flutes, so like the gaps between the tone holes and all of the kind of geometry going on, has been developed under what's called the Altus Bennett scale. So Altus, the main flute maker at Altus, has worked very closely with the famous flute player William Bennett to come up with a mapping of the flute where intonationally it's going to be really, really nice. It's meant to be really, really nicely in tune with itself in terms of its own intervals and harmonics, and really stable and that kind of thing. This has the S-cut head joint, like I mentioned when we compared it to the Z-cut head joint. It's a lot rounder, the embouchure hole on this one. You can't really see it, but this kind of inner lip edge of the embouchure hole is a little bit concave as well, which again, it's the kind of invisible stuff that's going to make all the difference. I think especially more so with flutes than some of the other woodwinds, your individual mouth shape is going to have more of an impact than you think in terms of how it interacts with the embouchure hole. And you can probably find some of them you're going to get on much better, some of them you're going to get on with much worse, but they're all going to do something ever so slightly different for you. This flute obviously has the open hole and the low C foot. Again, I think with this one you can get it in closed hole and you can get it with a low B foot if you really want, but this is the one that we've got, which I think is a nice kind of combination of these kind of features. That's what makes it more of an intermediate than a full kind of pro flute. But the invisible manufacturing decisions that have gone into this I think, reflect in its price, and will probably reflect in the way that it responds in a way that's really hard to articulate. I'm just going to have a quick look at the outfit, because this one comes with the standard fabric outer case. Are we going to bet money on whether there's fluff on the inside? There's fluff on the inside. It's, again, it's a bit of a kind of a sheepskinny shearling type of fluff. And again, you've got the shoulder bag and the kind of more storage for extra bits. The hard case, standard, lovely velvet lining. And again, you've got your plugs in here. So even though it's an Altus, you know, some people may be intimidated at the thought of having something that's made in this kind of level of high-end manufacture, but even they are saying, you know, use your plugs, man, it's fine. And then this little flap here to protect it. So I don't know if you can actually see that. I can see it really well with our cool lighting in here, but this is like, there's an iridescence to this lining. It's almost like it goes from like electric blue to forest green, like it flashes. That's just quite a nice little aesthetic choice that they've done there. So let's see what Tom makes of it in the studio.
Right, we've hooked in our audience saying these flutes are all under £3,000, but confession, the Altus is actually £3,099. Sorry, but we're all here now, and wasn't it great?
Absolutely.
Did you enjoy it?
It's worth that little bit of extra money, I've got to say. Yes.
Okay.
We've talked about Altus flutes quite extensively in our other video we did.
Oh, you should check that out, by the way. There's a whole Altus range introductory video with the wonderful Tom Conroy.
And this is the first in that range. So yes, we've talked about it a lot, but I will say it instantly brings me back to loving that quality of flute, the way it plays. Again, we're on Britannia silver for the head joint, which I love.
He loves
it. But you've still got the sterling silver lip plate and riser, so it feels like home if you're upgrading from a silver, a sterling silver based flute. And yeah, it feels great under the fingers. It's got a nice sound. Yeah, I really enjoyed playing it.
Yeah, but crucially, probably everyone has a different feel and a different, like,
oh, absolutely,
idea about what they want a flute to feel like.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
And these flutes are all taking up residency here at Dorks, so come down and try them all. You will not regret coming and having a little bit of an experiment.
Right, Tom, real talk. Which one of these are you saving from a burning building?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've got two hands, so I'm going to say two.
Oh, he's a sneak.
I've got to say, I know what I'm getting with an Altus, and it plays great, but I also really did enjoy playing the Pearl.
Yes, you did.
Just for that darker quality and a bit more versatility in what you can get out of it.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Well, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like all our videos, and we will see you next time.